Welcome to Money Talks with me, Gerald and Mr. G. Mwandiambira, a show that discusses the day-to-day money conversations we sometimes don't want to have or often ignore, or simply do not know enough about to tackle. Today we're talking about black tax again. We covered this topic last time, and today we delve even deeper. To me, this topic is important because we needed to cover it in its entirety. And to cover the topic, we've got Kuda Gamba, who's a professional and deals with black tax in your ordinary life, day to day. And again, we welcome Eunice Sibiya from Sibiya Coaching and Consulting. She's a money expert, everything to do with money psychology. You are the guru. Now, last time we spoke about black tax from a technical perspective. I think we defined it well. We spoke about what it is, but we didn't really go into its effects in terms of how black tax or family responsibility affects individuals. And that's why I would like us to pick it up today. Eunice, in your experience, what's your experience with black tax in terms of effects on your life?
Whew, we can be here for 2 days discussing the effect on my life. I'm the eldest at home. And obviously when we were growing up, you look at your parents hustling. My dad used to hold multiple jobs just for us to survive and everything. We were 5 siblings. So it was a family of 7, you can imagine. He had a permanent job and he had dry cleaning services, and my mom was this, an assistant. Sometimes she was taking other jobs just to make sure that the family is balanced. And you grow up looking at this like, when I grow up, I don't think I want to continue with this. And I remember with my first job, the first paycheck, I'm like, I have money. I have money. Yes, I needed to spoil myself. I was happy we bought nice stuff to celebrate at home. But the very next month, I was like, okay, I need to identify some responsibilities that I can remove from my parents, just so that they can have change for themselves and maybe look at other things that they haven't been able to attend to financially. So you assume that role. I was never set down to say, hey, Bonamo, you must do 1, 2, 3. No, my parents didn't do that. I think I grew up with that. Now I'm working. You know, at month end, you walk in the street.
Come back with the plastic bags.
Come back with the plastic bags and you put down the slip that I've paid this and I bought that. It just brought gratification to me. But growing up as well, there was disciplines, there were conversations, not too deep, but to say, look after your money. Put money away. You're going to get married one day and stuff like that. So, you know, it was black tax, but very soft, if I can put it that way. It wasn't hardcore that I was expected to foot this bill and buy this and build this.
So essentially you're recapping that it's a choice. No matter how you complain about it, no matter how bitter you can be, it's you who's making that choice. So you chose to help your family. Kuda, how is black tax impacting on yourself, your life, your marriage? How does it affect you?
Okay. Well, fortunately, I come from a family that's self-sustaining, and I got lucky that I got married into a family that's also self-sustaining.
What does that mean, rich?
No, not rich. We're not rich.
Self-sustaining.
But we come from comfortable homes, both single-parent homes, but they're quite comfortable. So there's no obligation to send money every month, having to send money for groceries, money for medical bills, money for electricity bills, because we're both blessed to come from homes that are like that. However, we do have friends, for example, my husband's colleague, who's had to build a home back home. He's in South Africa. He doesn't own a property here. He still lives in a rented apartment. But he's had to
build a home for family.
For family, because they have nowhere to stay.
So you've touched on 2 things there. Now, Eunice, is black tax a thing for poor people? I know you said self-sustaining, people who are okay. Does it only impact lower LSM families, or is family responsibility across the board?
In my view, it's across the board.
Okay.
However, it will be heavier with poor families or families with
less resources.
So obviously the demand or the obligation is much bigger or higher where they have nothing. But if you have to help here and there, or you just send them money because you can, it's very different. But I think it will all sit still in the bracket of black tax, but the degrees vary.
They vary. Now, Kuda, you spoke about your husband's friend who has built a house, yet they don't own a house.
Yes.
We've also heard stories of people who've bought other people cars, yet they don't have cars. Is it a form of psychological blackmail? How do you get to the point where you're doing something for someone else which you don't have? It's like buying something you don't know, but you're doing it. Is this psychological? What drives a person to do that?
I think he's just thinking that we have nowhere to go to. And he feels that it's his burden to carry if your family has nowhere to stay. But for somebody who's got a wife and a child in South Africa, it's something that you have to think about, because what happens if you cut off from this wife and then she and your child, they have nowhere to stay, they have nowhere to go, but you've built a home back home.
So that's a sandwich generation scenario, and she's thrown in the whole diaspora thing as well.
She has.
So how do we deal with it? Because, you know, one of the things you always speak about, Eunice, is the fact that money is all emotional.
Yes.
And we're already going into the emotional territory. There's potentially psychological blackmail. How does one function emotionally when they know that there's an entire clan who expects you, A, to succeed, B, never to fail, C, to always get more?
It's many emotions, as you have said. There could be guilt. There could be that leadership, that income that says, I'm the man, maybe he's the eldest, or he's the wealthiest male in the family, not necessarily rich, but wealthy in their eyes in terms of the different levels of income or wealth that they have. It could be that, you know, in a village or where we stay, this is the level of houses. But my family maybe had a mud house, so I need to lift them up. It's many emotions that come into play. But there could be bitterness. If that's an obligation that he could not say no to. And he will honor it. Yet there's a bit of sadness in it to say, I don't own a house myself. I'm married. Imagine the level of sacrifices that him and his wife have to make. I wonder what that conversation went like. It's very deep and it'll never end. You know, I imagine myself being his wife, like, Joe, we are renting. And you built a how many ever roomed house for your parents. I know they needed it, but Mara, there's always a Mara. So it needs to be, people, we need to be very mature.
We need to be very careful.
We need to be careful.
I think what we've spoken about is you've now gone into the marriage territory. How does that wife function, knowing that I don't have a home, yet my husband has built a home for people far away? You know, how do you reconcile with that?
I actually think that this is a conversation that people need to discuss, because it's black tax is a reality in most of our homes. It's a conversation that people need to discuss before they even get into these relationships and these marriages, to say, this is what my family is like, this is what your family is like. How do we deal with this? When do we say no? What are our obligations towards our families back home? I think that's a conversation that people need to discuss.
But you're saying the word no. It's not that easy to say no to family. We're Africans. When someone comes to your doorstep, they need somewhere to sleep, give them a bed. When someone comes to your doorstep, they need something to eat, give them food. Worse, they've got your same surname, they know your parents, they watched you grow up. How do you deal with it, Eunice? How do you train people to say no? What power comes from within from no? How do I teach myself?
It's the power of knowing self. It's the power of knowing my journey. It's the power of knowing my limitations. How deep are my pockets, or how shallow are my pockets? What have I gotten planned for myself? How committed am I? Because working, obviously you have commitments. You have things that you've signed up for on your own because you were looking at your budget, you were looking at your needs. Now you have this extra burden or request or a need that you now need to cater for. So it never is the same solution for everybody. All the situations are different by different people, different magnitude, different resources. So it's conversations, deep and honest conversations that need to take place. And we need to decide if there's a we, how much can we help with? Can we even take up this responsibility of building a home, if I can make an example. But with others, it's not a home. They do have a home, they do have a shelter, but it's ongoing phone calls and SMSs. Now we don't have sugar today, tomorrow we don't have meal, we don't have soap and stuff like that. Is it something that you need to put it in your budget because you can see it's a monthly thing, it's a long-term thing? Or do you have a way to say, to one member of the family who is able to maybe run a business, to say, I can give you a startup contribution, I can give you a startup capital. Let's go and buy 1, 2, 3, sell it. I do not want it back, it's my investment, but so that you can be self-sufficient. So it's different models for different people that require different solutions and different conversations.
Now, you spoke about something there as well, which is important about work. And I remember when I was young, my parents died, and I was in the UK. Had a very good job at a young age, but I never enjoyed it. I had to look after my siblings. And then there was this thing called career tax, where because I'm working in that job, I had to dress a certain way, behave a certain way, drive a certain way. Do you feel that pressure in South Africa? Is it still there, Kuda, in terms of your job? When you drive into the office, do people peer and look at what car you came in? Is there career tax on top of black tax?
I think there still is career tax on top of black tax. Because the way, for example, I'm in media, the way you dress actually can determine whether you get a job or not.
Period.
Yes, because you have to look representable, you have to look presentable, you have to look a certain way for you to end up in certain positions. There's no way you're going to go to a meeting with mining clients and then or mining executives and you look a certain way.
Okay. Now,
So
so this now goes back to self,
It
Eunice.
goes back to self.
Self-awareness. Should I care what people think? Is it fair for some people to judge me by how I look? Because now we're going into self-esteem and how people get broken by the world.
Is it fair in whose eyes? Fair, they judge you, and they judge because they also have their own pressures that maybe they're running away from.
People will
Shifting
always judge.
focus, you have no control over that. It comes back to me. And also, we shouldn't fall prey into social pressure, social expectations, pleasing people, and forgetting about yourself and your means. So if I now am looked at to say, this is my address, I am expected to look this way, I'm expected to drive this car, I'm expected to eat at this restaurant. So one day they see you at that other smaller restaurant, no, it's not that. And if I want to downgrade, it's a decision that I have taken. Maybe by upgrading, I bit too much, much more than I can chew, and I now have made a realization to say, Batung, I'm drowning, and I need to downgrade. I should not worry about what people are going to say, because as I'm drowning, no one is contributing 1 cent. So downgrading should be a decision that I take upon myself because of my situation, and it's for me. They will talk, and maybe soon enough I'll be out of fashion.
I think that's important because people will talk for a while, but the good
Forever.
thing about people is that they soon forget.
Yeah.
You're the topic for today, tomorrow it's someone else. And we've touched on that, and we're going to continue on the next segment and in terms of unpacking that whole self and how family responsibility and black tax is driven by yourself. Join us after the break as we continue our conversation on family responsibility tax, or if you would like, just simply black tax. We'll see you soon. Welcome back to Money Talks with me, Gerald, Mr. G. Mwandiambira. And we're tackling black tax or family responsibility tax. And still with me in studio is Kuda Gamba, who's a professional who lives with black tax. She's married, got a family, and is living with it. And Eunice Sibiya from Sibiya Coaching and Consulting. And she's a wealth coach, money psychologist. You do it, you talk about money every day, Eunice. We spoke earlier on about how important it is to be able to say no to the family. Unfortunately, a lot of people do end up saying yes. And let's go into the people who've said yes and how badly things can turn out. Can black tax cost you your credit profile?
It can cost you many things. It can cost you your health. It can cost you your marriage. It can cost relationships. Yes, it can cost your profile. And how that happens is when we keep saying yes to commitments that we cannot carry, to commitments that we don't have the funding for. So you keep saying yes to build a house, to buy groceries, to pay school fees, yet you know that you are drowning. You know that your financial resources are this much, but the obligation is as big as a pool. Because we can't say no. We can't say no, we are not expected to say no. It's just a psychological battle. Again, it comes back to me, self. I know very well how far I can go financially. I know that at this point, I have no cent to my name. And at that moment, a request comes through.
And
what do I do? What do I say? It's my mom, she's ill. What do I do? I cannot say no. But if uncle say, hey, mfana, I need a bottle mole, do I say no? Then uncle quickly reminds you, I raised you. I helped your mom raise you. So there could be that guilt. It could be deliberate, or it could be because it's an expectation to say, my mchana is working, so my mchana is going to look after me. But it needs to be an education, very soft and respectful education back to our families to say, guys, I can help up to this point. Beyond this, I'm unable to. So it comes back to me, my strength, budgeting is very important.
Now, Kuda, have you and your husband ever done anything for black tax purposes for your families? What's your limit in your household? Have you got a set limit in terms of how much you will do?
I think it's a different discussion for every
family and couple.
Yes, for every family.
But do you have those limits in place?
We do have limits in place whereby if a request comes for something, we sit down and we discuss it. Do we have extra cash this month? Do we have savings for it? We have to discuss it because it just depends. It's dependent on whether we have the resources for it.
Okay, now let me ask you a quick one. Have you ever stood as surety for someone? Someone going to university, they said, no, I've got the money, I just need you to be surety. Are you surety for anyone?
No.
Okay.
No.
This is important, Eunice, because a lot of us are not doing it directly, but when someone is looking for an apartment, use me as a reference, use me as surety.
Yeah.
Can surety end up burning you?
I have a young lady who came to me and said she and her mother are going to kill each other. Her mom wanted a credit card. She was unemployed at the time, the mother. So the credit card was taken out in the daughter's name. Mommy is swiping her joy down every day. She promised to pay because she had money, but come month end, mommy just chooses not to pay. So the daughter must foot the bill. The daughter was in a relationship. It ended very bitterly. Mommy is still not paying.
Wow.
Yes. And I have many, many examples where family members bought cars for uncles and dads and whoever, and when the other, and usually it's the older people that will, no, I don't have money this month, just take care of it for me, get our bona next month, and next month never happens. So I have people that have had their relationships like actually torn apart because the one person is no longer honoring the obligation. They are now not honoring the agreement that was made. Yet the sad part is it's my name at the creditors.
Now, Kuda, I guess, you're young and you're married. Do you see other couples struggling with black tax? Is it something that's real in terms of couples? And where do you seek help as a young couple when you are faced with these challenges? I mean, maybe you haven't faced it, but do you know someone who's had to look for help, and where did they find it?
I think, yes, I do know a couple of people who have these kind of challenges whereby the husband's family is rich.
Too much? Yeah.
No, they're rich, and the wife's family is a bit on, so they're always calling for this request. But I actually think that as people, sometimes you have children, you need to sit down with a financial advisor and then plan for your future. How can we help people and how can we help our children? Because it ends up being a vicious cycle that keeps history repeating itself, where you're now dependent on your children because you don't have anything saved for retirement, they don't have any university tuition, they're going to go for those same loans that you guys went for, and it creates a vicious cycle. So you need financial help.
Okay, so Kuda has pointed to maybe young people should be looking at financial advisors or someone who's living with family responsibility pressures. What other help can someone look for, Eunice, in terms of they can't cope, it's too much?
Sitting down with your financial statements and looking at your position right now is very important. It starts with you. Draw those statements, look at the habit, look at the demands, look at the monies going out, so you have a full view. Then, yes, you can consult. You can go to a financial planner, you can go to a coach, you can go to a bank and say, this is my situation, I need someone to help me. But it will always come back to self. It will always come back to me because those demands are never going to end. So I need to take control. I need to know when to say no. I need to write down and have a plan of how much I can help with and when I am like exhausted. So it will always come back to the individual to say, guys, this point and no further. And I need to take care of my obligations. I have this obligation. You don't necessarily have to put your payslip on the table, but you tell them that I have a house, I have a car, I have loans, I have a life cover, I have children. So if at the end of every month, I have this month that I can reserve for you guys. If it's 300 Rand, it is 300 Rand and nothing beyond. So you can find help, you can find guidance, you can find people to help you plan your finances. It always comes back to me or the individual.
Now, Kuda, you mentioned a little dynamic which we haven't really gone into, which is the diaspora, where you're basically an immigrant or you've moved to another country. And in that case, family responsibility is no longer a choice, or is it? I mean, is someone who has moved from their home country forced to send money back home, or is it still a choice? Or at that point, you know, you made the choice by leaving, you must still provide?
I actually think coming from Zimbabwe, there might be an obligation because the country in itself is struggling. So if there's no food in the stores, then you have to step up and put food on a bus, send it back home. I think it's something that you can either be obligated to do or something that you can volunteer to do.
Okay, so again, it's all going back to choice. Now, Eunice, let's just find out, how do I let go? Because, you know, it changes the dynamics of the family. You find situations where the rich person, the rich child, runs the family. You know, family meetings can't start until you arrive. We can't discuss funeral arrangements until you arrive in your Mercedes-Benz. It even cuts across, you know, hereditary lines and seniority in the family, where the uncles are asking a 21-year-old, what should we do? In your opinion, is it right? Because, you know, it goes right back to, if I'm the senior and elder of the family, I should be able to say, go buy a casket. But you are coming back and you're saying, I don't want to, but you've got the means. Where do we draw the line? How do we re-establish our African values in terms of it being Ubuntu and family responsibility, whilst respecting limitations? Can't I, as a senior uncle, tell that little brat who earns a lot of money to do something?
So both sides, if the approach is incorrect, it will break the relationship. So you cannot force your ideas upon me or downward just because you're the uncle. And I cannot also now rise up above my uncle or my dad because I'm the funder. Everyone should know their positions. I am able to put money on the table and make things happen. I am junior, I am 21 years old. I just happened to be fortunate to have the education and have a good job, a good paying job. That doesn't mean that I'm now promoted to take a senior position in the family. I'm still a child. However, the elders must also know their positions. For me, what cuts across is respect. Regardless of who puts money on the table. So we shouldn't blur the lines of respect and Ubuntu and everything because this one holds the ATM card. No. So the conversations and communications and planning should still happen the way they should happen, with respect. And if I'm able to buy that custard or the cow or whatever, I'll say I can help with this much. Uncle so-and-so, you can go choose the cow.
Now, Kuda, last words for maybe a young couple out there struggling with black tax or family responsibility. What would you share?
Okay, I would say sit down. When you get married, sit down and discuss your obligation.
Not before.
Well, before you get married, but let's say you're already in this marriage. You need to sit down and discuss how you help your families, when you help, and to what extent you help. And then you need to sit down and figure out how many children you're going to have, what money you're going to save and put aside for those children, what you're going to do about their tuition. Should we break up, what is going to happen? These are conversations that happen every single day, and these are conversations that we need to discuss as young families.
Okay, and Eunice, parting shot in terms of someone also under the pressure of black tax, it's too much. How do they get going in terms of fixing themselves?
You know, black tax is not something that exists amongst the black nation. It's a global phenomenon, like we said the last time, because it's financial assistance. So it happens across nations, across races. It just is maybe with us as Africans, because of our income levels and poverty and historic drama, it's at a bigger scale. And our families are larger, and the diaspora thing. And to a question with maybe people that you call them immigrants, it happens with people living in the same township. The responsibility is on the one person. So it comes back to financial management, knowing self, and planning, and being responsible and focused. So know yourself, your emotions, what makes you tick, and what your goals are, your dreams are, and in your financial planning, you cater for that. If you know that in your setup you need to help, put it in your budget, buy how much. However, we were talking outside to say, if you're able to give someone a startup, let them be self-sufficient, do that. In English they say, teach a man to fish, as opposed to always giving them fish. So we need to start thinking along those lines. However, there's a bit of education that is required, particularly with the older folk, to say there's also obligations with these generation. The generation has got financial needs and obligations, so we need to be mindful of that, not just throwing demands.
So thank you for that one. So as we wrap up the conversation, the takeout points are we need to manage the situation. It can affect our health, it can affect our marriage, and we need to budget and we need to know our limits. And most importantly, as Eunice shared, in order to deal and manage black tax or family responsibility, you need to respect each other. That's it for today's episode. Catch us next time on Money Talks. From me, Gerald, Mr. G. Wandiambira, thank you for joining us.